Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, hip-hop and hijabis. We speak with two women rappers who are forcing people to look beyond their headscarves to hear their music. The female Muslim duo Poetic Pilgrimage has stormed the hip-hop arena, breaking cultural and religious boundaries. Born to Jamaican parents in the UK, Munira Rashida and Sakina Abdul Noor have toured around the world. Facing resistance along the way, some Muslims say their performances are haram or forbidden, but this hasn't stopped the pair who believe music is permissible within Islam. Now, the film Hip Hop Hijabis documents 3 years in Munira and Sakina's lives, giving us a first-hand look at their battles and victories.
Munira and I, we've always been on a spiritual journey. Poetic Pilgrimage was the kind of natural continuation of that search.
Raise your awareness, please make some noise for Poetic Pilgrimage!
Woo! This is something you weren't expecting. Muslim chick, mic in hand repping. Must be perplexing and my girl ain't even stepped in. That's unintentional.
And then suddenly you guys are on stage. And I thought, that is a conflict, isn't it? Is it just me or is it conflicting somehow?
I wasn't aware of the argument of like music being haram or anything like that until I had embraced Islam.
Now, you can see the full film on Sunday at 22:30 GMT on Al Jazeera's Witness. Welcome to the stream, ladies. This is a really wonderful preview for that documentary. Great to have you here, Munira and Sakina. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Excellent. Now, before we get started, we can't do the whole show without our digital producer, Malika Bilal. Malika, what do you have for us?
Well, in addition to all of the tweets that are coming in, we have a lineup in our Google Plus Hangout, and they're lining up to ask their questions of the duo. So we have Aliyah Sharif. She's a hip-hop artist and activist. Anas Cannon is a DJ and producer. And Tijani Conscious is a Jamaican reggae artist. Now, of course, for those of you at home, you can still join in on the conversation, even if you're not on the show, by using hashtag AJStream.
Let's get started with Sakina and Munira. Sakina, when you first met Munira, what did you think about her?
So I met Munira at high school. She was a few years older than me, and we actually met in a gospel choir. It was the first gospel choir that had ever happened at our high school. So when I saw her, because she was a few years older than me, I was a little bit intimidated by her because she used to hang around with the cool crowd,
right.
And she has this kind of dominating way of walking through the school corridors. So I was like, you know, I never really thought that we'd be friends or anything, but I was just a very nervous when I used to see her walking around, marching around.
Marching around, please.
So, Munira, as you were marching around and you caught sight of Sakina, what did you think of her?
I thought, who is this chick? Because like she's saying that I was marching around. She was also marching around, but in her platforms. She had these Spice Girl platforms and she had like an afro. First of all, she had like this slick back hair and an afro. And I thought, this girl, she looks cool. Who is she? So I was like thinking the same thing, really.
Now, people, when they see you as a group, you're a group because you're best friends. You're not a group because the music necessarily brought you together. At what point did you realise, oh, we can write together? We've got something going on that's quite creative.
Well, I think for me, when I met Munira back in our hometown of Bristol, Munira was a DJ on the local radio. So I always kind of like respected her because she had quite a big name in our hometown. And so she always used to kind of educate me on hip hop and music, and I think that inspired me to even start writing in the first place. And I think through that inspiration, like Munira and I decided, like, why don't we come together and actually do this together, because we felt there was a void for us as young girls. There was no one really representing us in the media, in the mainstream. So we kind of got together, but it was through, I think, Munira's education, you know, of me in hip hop that kind of got us started.
So Munira and Sakina, now of course it's been years since you've been a duo. So we have a video comment here from someone in New York who has a question for you. He calls himself Spirit Child.
Peace to Poetic Pilgrimage. The question I have for you is, what roadblocks have you run into being Muslim, being women, and also being a group? Can you talk or elaborate on the spirit of collaboration and the dynamics of keeping two individuals working together?
So he has a multi-layered question there, but I'm hoping you can focus on the last part, the being a duo. There got to be times where you didn't necessarily agree. Tell us about those.
you know, there was a point where Sakina and I, we were like working together, best friends, living together. We spent every single moment together. So it was like really tough being around each other. But I don't know, because we're coming from a similar background, I think we understand how to speak to each other. We understand that, like, you know, in Jamaican culture, we're passionate people. So sometimes we may shout, sometimes we may get loud, sometimes we may storm out, but is nothing. And I used to always say to Sakina that ultimately, do you think I love you? If you know that I love you, then you know that, like, whatever I say to you isn't because I don't like you, it's because I want to work something out here. So I mean, us being friends and having a real strong friendship, you know, I think that's always made sure that we didn't really fall out in that sort of a way, you know.
And when it came to sort of musical collaboration,
you guys mentioned the fact that you are Jamaicans, and you know that was one of the connection that me as a reggae artist from Jamaica, and also being Muslims and seeing that you guys are Muslims, I just had a natural connection. And I'm always interested, like, how did your Jamaican heritage impact your music? And you know, because I can hear in a couple of your guys' song, you know, you have some reggae rhythm and you're dropping the floor, the hip hop floor on it, and it's so wicked. And you know, Jamaicans love the representation. So tell me about the music and how the Jamaican culture impacted.
Definitely. I think for us, our Jamaican culture, our heritage is so important to us. Even though we were born and raised in England, we always identify with Jamaica as where we're from. So even at the time that we converted to Islam, I was in the process of doing my degree in Caribbean studies. So my dissertation was about the Caribbean and the impact of Caribbean culture to the Harlem Renaissance, actually, is what I studied. So I think that, like, it always informed us as a people, like my background, my family, my parents were Rasta before I was born. So we always kind of have that connection to, like, what it means to be Jamaican, what it means to kind of be a descendant of, you know, the African diaspora, people that were taken as slaves. And I think that, like, that's why for us it's really important that our music is heard, and why we really think it's important that, you know, we do express ourselves, because as people of the African diaspora, music has always been there. That was our survival, you know, that was how we got through that struggle, you know. So we always see that, you know, for me personally, I love reggae music. It touches me more than other forms of music, you know. So it's very important to us.
It's essential. Like, Sakina and I, we joke all the time. We say, like, we were breastfed on Bob Marley. It's so our backdrop. It's natural. It's just natural. It's our culture. It's it's just us. Important. It's us.
Yeah. Bob is the man.
Bob Marley is the man. I just seen a documentary of him last night. But sisters, as speaking of the African descent where we all come from, what are the challenges of being Black and Muslim? I know it's a popular hashtag going on right now, and as a Black Muslim artist, I know I face the trials of proving to people if music is haram or not, but also being Black is another, you know, obstacle.
Absolutely. I think that, like, one of the biggest obstacles I feel concerning being a Black Muslim artist is the way in which our art form as hip hop or reggae is looked down upon. And, you know, for us to be Black female rappers.
I'm just going to ask you to back up just a little bit, because I know you've experienced this a lot. What do you mean by being looked down upon?
Well, what I mean is that, you know, for example, if you look all over the Muslim world, there are traditions of music. If you go to Egypt, you have Kulthum. If you go to Palestine, you find people that do music. You know, all over the Muslim world, there are musical traditions that have always existed. But when we as Poetic Pilgrimage use hip-hop, or when someone like Tijani Conscious uses reggae, straight away the dialogue comes up, or the discussion comes up, are they even Muslim? So for us to use music of our traditions, suddenly we're being cast out of Islam for the type of music that we're using. Whereas when you find people, you know, doing qawwali, or people doing traditional music with flute, strings, wind, whatever, there's no dialogue about whether you're Muslim or not. But when you do music from the African diaspora, I find suddenly we're being put into this dialogue about are you even Muslim? And I think that's a real subtle form of racism.
You know, Sakina, I'm so glad that Aaliyah brought that up. We actually got this tweet. This just came in. We're featuring it on our app. This is a new app. You can download it, Al Jazeera, stream.aljazeera.com/app. This tweet from Hana Shafi says, Black Muslim women face layered oppressions and their voices are often ignored by mainstream outlets. So, Munira, what are those experiences that you've had that might speak to that layered oppression?
I mean, like, first of all, like, in general, when you convert to Islam, a lot of people have the assumption that you don't like your culture. So there's been times where, you know, people say, oh, what's your background? Where are you from? And we say, oh, we're Jamaican. And people are like, oh, don't worry, never mind. You know, like, you've come to Islam now, as if to say that we have a problem with our culture. So I think it's just that mind state in general, the mind state that makes someone think that you're ashamed of where you're coming from. So people aren't going to be able to, like, see you in anything other than these poor people who've come to Islam and now they've been saved, because everything that they were before is bad.
Munira, how do you react to that? I can't imagine someone saying that to your face and you not having an incredibly amazing reply that I would like to witness.
You should have seen me in the early days of Islam.
Yeah, I wish I'd been there. Go on, share with us. Be very candid, because I'm sure a lot of people experience this as well, and they're not too sure, what do I say back to this?
You know, I think the first few times that it happened or people came up with comments like that, I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. And I hadn't really thought about that. I was new into the religion, so I hadn't really had a conversation with myself about what I think about that. After a while, I just started, like, you know, replying in an aggressive manner and just say, you know what, I'm proud of my culture, so, you know, don't even try to tell me anything about my culture or Jamaican culture. But now I put the question back at them. I just say, well, what makes you think I would be embarrassed about my culture? Why would you think that? So do you think your culture is maybe better than my culture? Do you think that you don't have any negative aspects of your culture? And, like, I talk about my culture, talk about the history of Islam there, talk about even without Islam how spiritual the people are, how religious the people are, how resilient the, you know, the ethics that they have there. You know, like, you come to the Caribbean, like, you'll see black, white, Chinese. The Caribbean is such a banner for, like, just goodness and good-hearted people and good-spirited people. So I just say, well, what about your culture?
Yeah, out of many one people. That's
right,
true.
So there you are.
But you know, I know that the Jamaican culture is really strong, as we all know, right? So how did your family take it? Because, you know, you guys are really positive role models for the many sisters that's converting to Islam. And we know we don't like to use the word convert, but is now has realized that they have always been Muslim and is practicing as Muslims in Jamaica, and you guys are a positive role model, being women that they can see is progressive and still being Muslims, you know? So how did your family take it when you first start practicing? Because I know, you know, Jamaica is a strong Christian country. I'm just wondering that even though England...
All right, so Tijani, I'm going to wrap up this question, because basically you want to say, did your family freak out? Munira.
Yeah, really.
That's what he's getting at, right? How did they react?
Okay. At first, my mum and my family, they thought it was a phase, because I would come to them every week, Mum, I'm this, Mum, I'm that. So I think they thought it was a phase. But when they realized that my mum's a deacon. In fact, she's not a deacon. She told me the other day, I'm not a deacon, I'm a minister. It's higher.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This would go down well. Not.
So,
okay.
You know, like my mum.
Your mum, the minister, with a daughter who's hijabi. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for her, it was just like not acceptable, you know. We was always going at it between each other. Like she would say, "Why you have to pray so much?" I was like, "Well, I pray more than you," you know. And she said, "Like, but why you must do it so much?" You know. So it was confusion. But now my mum has seen that my character has gotten better. You know, my mum's seen only goodness come out of me, you know, and seen me striving. So she appreciates it.
Yeah.
But she still would like me to marry a nice little Christian man, you know?
Okay.
Munira and Sakina, I want to shift just a little bit now to your actual work, because that's the type of tweets we're getting now. So Aziza writes in that one of the challenges she thinks that you probably face is that the hip hop industry is a male-dominated industry. And the fact that there are very few female performers, she says, and the fact that you're Muslim and covered is just added onto that challenger. So Anas, when I read a tweet like that, you know, I'm pulling up here next, you have produced music for them. This is a picture of you three, Congo Square, Poetic Pilgrimage, and DJ Anas Cannon. So why did you want to collaborate? What was behind that?
We don't seem to have Anas's audio. While we fix that, let me play you a little bit of Poetic Pilgrimage in action. If you want to feel like, what does it feel like when they're about to go on stage? Anas, we'll come right back to you. Munira and Sakina, that feeling you get just as you're walking onto the stage is what?
I think it's like for me it's like intense. It's like intense butterflies. But the funny thing is Manira and I are different. Like if we have a show coming up in the run up, Manira gets nervous a lot earlier. So just before we go on stage, sometimes she can be really playful and jokey. But I'm cool in the run up, but just before I'm so nervous, it's like I kind of freeze a little bit and I don't want to talk. But I think it's that adrenaline that pushes us when we get on stage.
All right, so bearing in mind how Manira and Sakina feel just as about to head on stage, let me just play you a little clip from Awareness. Have a look at this.
Raise your awareness, please make some noise for Poetic Pilgrimage.
This is something you weren't expecting. Muslim chick, mic in hand, rapping. Must be perplexing, and my girl ain't even stepped in. That's unintentional, we're unconventional. Don't need to mention more, I see the tension in your jaw. This ain't a gimmick or a new invention. Spitting bars like stars before I draw my pension. No weave or hair extension, just a hijab or head wrap. Cause Allah said that, I gotta keep my modesty intact. I'm that MC that's unlikely, there's none quite like me. My skills can pay your bills and we can live for free. You can't bite me, I rhyme tightly. Hip-hop's inside this unlikely MC.
All right, let's go back to Anas. Anas, we were wondering about female artists in a male-dominated society, and you were just about, and music industry, just about to answer, but we didn't have your audio. Hopefully we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for having me on. I should also mention, since we talking a little about Jamaican music, that Jamaican music is my favorite form of music, and I'm always interested in collaborating with Jamaican artists. Throughout the last probably 3, arguably 4 decades, music is heard around the globe. In fact, I think it's the only music that you can find absolutely everywhere. It doesn't matter if you some rich high city people are on vacation somewhere on an island, there's Jamaican music playing in the background. So it's always impacting everything, and there's no other music on the world that you can find that's constantly, decade after decade, shaping and contributing to music at large, whether you talk about Major Lazer and Diplo today, or you go back 10 years ago and you want to talk about Sizzler, or you go way far back and you want to talk about early ska and the effects that it had on Motown and rock. Jamaican music's always making an impact. So anytime I have an opportunity to collaborate with Jamaican musicians, I take it. The name Congo Square was a place in New Orleans where slaves used to meet on the weekends, and allow them an opportunity during the time of slavery to collaborate and do music and celebrate. And I sort of wanted to build on that theme, seeing as we're all sort of from the diaspora.
So was it the Jamaicanness of Jamaican heritage of Manira and Sakina that drew you to them, or was it the fact that they were hijabis that drew you to them? That it seems like, until you've met Manira and Sakina, do those two things even go together, hijabis and hip hop?
I don't really even think about things in those terms. I don't limit myself to that worldview of looking at people by their, whatever their spiritual preference is. I've done a tour with them in England a few years prior, and we hit it off and just had a really great vibe. So I was really more interested in working with them as musicians. The fact that they were Muslim didn't really have as much to do with it for me. I have to say that I did like the opportunity to sort of poke some people in the eye who say that women can't do music, or I'll just stop there.
Yeah. Right. And speaking on just hijabis and hip hop, I'm a hip hop artist myself and a hijab, and I found myself being asked to compromise my beliefs or my faith, what I stood for, my modesty, wearing my hijab just for this hip hop industry. And sisters, I would like to know, have you ever been asked to compromise yourself just for an advantage in music? Which I doubt
for us,
you did.
For us as Poetic Pilgrimage, I think that's never really happened. I think we've been quite, I don't know if I'd use the word fortunate, but I think that whenever we have approached a hip hop arena, we focus so much on the kind of power and the weight of our words and our delivery and what we're trying to convey, that I think the kind of dialogue about you shouldn't be doing this or you shouldn't wear hijab or what, if anything, people are kind of more just a bit confused and a bit in awe of us as a group, that dialogue never really takes place.
Okay, but ladies, let me remind you of one time when it did, because it is in the documentary, and I'm just going to go there. You were on a tour, and you were on a tour with male hip hop artists, and you were on the tour, and you were going to, I believe it was Bradford, where there was a discussion in the room where you weren't sure if it was okay to do your normal hip hop numbers. Maybe you should just do spoken word, because music might have been considered haram for the women, i.e. forbidden, but not forbidden for the guys. And of course my feminist hackles are like, what? And you literally are having this discussion. So I know you just swept that under the carpet, but it's there every day for you. And that's that's the sort of thing that I think Aaliyah is getting at.
Yeah, I suppose something like that is different because that's dealing with the Muslim community.
Yes.
When I was dealing with Aaliyah's question, I was more dealing with just the hip-hop community in general, outside of the Muslim community. In the Muslim community, that's different because it comes with its own complexities. We converted to Islam 10 years ago where people, the idea of Islam and even, you know, anything, even just Islam and poetry or any kind of urban art form was brand new, you know, so people, they couldn't really comprehend it, you know. I think, and that still exists. So in the documentary, it was like the guys can come and perform with a live band and they can have live music. So you're saying music is okay then, but then women can come, but they can't use music. So our thing is, what is your argument? Is your argument that music is impermissible? If that's the case, no one do music. Is the problem that women shouldn't perform? If that's the case, why are you even having us on the tour? It was more that people are almost like changing the goalposts as they were going along because they were making it up. Because I think they themselves didn't really know exactly where they stood on it in the Muslim community, so that was the distinction. But in the non-Muslim hip-hop community, I think our experiences were predominantly positive. Yeah.
And that's the thing about, you know, being, you know, independent artists. Being independent artists, you guys don't have to really conform to anybody's stereotypes, because, you know, people always have stereotypes. As the Jamaican Muslim reggae artists, they have stereotypes that I should be, you know, worshipping Selassie, or I should be smoking weed. How come you're a Jamaican and you don't smoke marijuana? Yeah. You know, these are all stereotypes. So I know they have stereotypes for you guys too, but this is a positive, you know, way that you can overcome all of that. And in Britain, I know they must have some stereotypes for you guys being female hip hop artists in hijab. They figure you should be somewhere else instead of being on stage, right?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, it's interesting. Sometimes we go into a venue and people will just look at us like, what the hell are you doing here, you know? They don't really realize that we're the artists. And then when we go on stage, it's like, they're even more surprised. We'll introduce ourselves because we like communicating with people. We'll introduce ourselves and we'll go into the first track and people are just still because they don't know what's going on. And then as Sakina and I, we always say like 3 tracks into it, people are like throwing up their hands and, you know, they're really getting into the groove. And the point is, we're challenging their stereotypes. They came to the show not necessarily knowing what to expect, or maybe they did know what that they're gonna be entertained by 2 Muslim women, but they had prejudices. They had all these sort of stereotypes and images of women.
All right,
Muslim women being
so
suppressed
Munira, when people after watching this show and watching your documentary come to see you, what are they coming to see? In a nutshell.
Could you rephrase the question so I don't understand?
What are people coming to see? If they come with an image of you, what are they really coming to see? What are you giving them?
Okay, so first of all, like a lot of people, they have this, especially when we perform in Europe. People have this idea about like, you know, Muslim women.
No, not what the idea is. What are they really coming to see?
Okay,
what are you doing on stage?
Yeah. To be truthful, we're just rocking and we're just being ourselves.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to be like the banner of like Islam.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like the banner of Islam or the banner of anything. We're just here to represent ourselves. We're just here to tell what's on our hearts, you know, and like people like honesty, and people will be intrigued by that anyway because human communication, hearts touch hearts, you know,
right.
So that's what people are coming to
Munira,
see.
take a breath. I hate to say this. Sakina, take a breath. We are taking them to the post show, stream.aljazeera.com. Much more conversation there. Let me just check in with the online community, Malika.
I'll read a last tweet. We're getting lots of kudos and praise. It's incredibly refreshing to see Black Muslim women changing the narrative, reasserting that everyone has their own journey to Islam.
All right, I know that you are intrigued by Munira and Sakina. You can watch the full documentary on Witness. It comes up on Sunday, 22:30 GMT, right here on Al Jazeera English. Let me leave you with a little taste of the ladies in action with a clip from the film Hip Hop Hijabis. Enjoy.
My descents to travel in the bottom of gallows, taking a stage to a land far away where the spirit remains unattached and brave. They would say, I'm only a slave to the most high, assimilate to get by, but under the night sky, playing ways to survive, I mean to stay alive, even if it meant to take a life. So why do you and I scream for freedom, asking permission when you know we don't need them? I give thanks for the fact that I'm breathing, my legacy retrieved, and I've got my freedom. Sing these songs, I've got my freedom. Sing these songs, I've got my freedom.
Hello again, this is the Streams Online Post Show. We're continuing our conversation with Munira and Sakina of the Muslim hip-hop duo Poetic Pilgrimage. Ladies, welcome back after a very, very tiny break. You're writing together. How do you do that? Can you set the scene?
So for Munira and myself, our writing, it can depend on two things. Sometimes we might see an injustice, we may see something or something may happen in our lives that might spark our heart. So we'll have a dialogue about it. Before even we have a musical conversation, it's a conversation about content. What do we want to say? How do we feel? You know, so generally it begins in that stage, and then we have the opportunity to work with different artists, different producers like Anas, for example, and then through the kind of marriage of the beats and the production and the instrumentals will kind of match some of the things that we've got on our heart with the production, or we might just hear a beat and it might just communicate to us directly something brand new. So when we worked with Anas, for example, it was like that. Like there was some beats he'd play and it would just open a whole world of just like the music would take us on a journey that would cause us to write. So yeah, it depends, but it's always content heavy. That's very important to us.
And this is how how do you feel what do you feel our narrative, what do you feel our responsibility is as far as changing the narrative that's out there in the media about Islam today? Like, I know a lot of people are going through Islamophobia. Chapel Hill just happened. I call it hip-hop dawah, which you ladies are definitely doing, putting dawah, putting advice, putting guidance in your music, which is very important, and a lot of women look up to you for that. What do you think our roles as Muslim hip-hop artists is to just change this whole entire perspective about Islam going on right now?
I think like there's a role for us as Muslim hip-hop artists, but I think there's a role for Muslims in general. And that role is just to simply be. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes if we try to act the right way, if we try to do the right thing, like, you know, people will see that as fake and it's not with good intentions. But if we simply just be who we are and just be humans, we are rappers, you know, so we just be rappers, you know? Like we are, you know, if you're a nurse, just be a nurse and just be good to people. What our religion teaches about good character, just have good character and be, and people will see the sincerity in that. I'm not really like of the you know, opinion of like try to pretend to do something, you know.
And also as well, I think for us it's not necessarily about doing dawah either, or you know, making a call to Islam through our music. I don't think really that's kind of our intention, because for us it's like Islam has always spread, you know, by way of just good character and by way of just good morals. So for us, not that our intention is even to try and spread Islam, but our intention is just to be the best that we can be as women, to have good character, to be upright and noble. And I think that like that speaks volumes other than me saying read the Quran, you know what I'm saying? Like that to me is not really where we are, and I think human beings where we are, that's not what we want, you know?
You know, it's interesting that you said that your intention isn't necessarily to spread Islam, because just picking up on what you asked, Aaliyah, we got this tweet from Sabak MQ, who says, I read somewhere that they are a Muslim hip-hop band, and that's in quotes. Isn't that strange? Do they agree? Music can't have a religion, it's universal. And I think all of our guests here today, of course, can speak to that because you all do music. But Munira, I'll direct that one to you first.
So, sorry, what's your actual question? I'm so sorry. What's your question? Is
your music specifically Muslim music, Muslim hip-hop? This person is saying music should be universal. What your thoughts on that?
No. Like we're from Jamaica, one of the biggest artists in reggae music in general, and like one of the biggest reggae artists, like you go anywhere in the world, you see him in Sudan, in China, wherever. Bob Marley, right? And as Sakina always says, like Bob Marley is this man who believes that there's another man in Ethiopia and he's God. Do you get what I mean? But his music, his messages spread throughout the world, you know, it touches the hearts of people. And that's because he's not trying to push, he's not like, hey, be Rasta, you know, like, so we just make music that speaks from the heart, you know, like, exactly, you know, there's so many things that we can connect on as human beings, you know.
And I feel that everyone that hears Bob Marley, they're immediately, you know, they are going to say Rastafari, because that's what Bob Marley represented. And as Muslims using hip hop, I feel that it can be used in a weapon to combat stereotypes, because a lot of people feel like hip hop music is haram. So in order to kind of change that opinion, my idea was like, okay, so you put more dawah and you put more example of how to be a good Muslim, not just being a Muslim rapper, but being an example and spreading a word that's going to stay with people.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's strange that there's
music.
There's precedence for things like this. Like if you look at Wu-Tang, I think everybody knows right away when they see the W what that symbol means. And corporate media was comfortable sponsoring that for over decades. And every single member of the Wu-Tang Clan is a card-carrying member of the 5% Nation of Gods and Earth, which would loosely refer to themselves as being Muslims. So it's not. I'm always wondering, do you guys ever get tired of having to discuss this and not just being respected on the merits of the music alone? Because I can say that I was frustrated having this conversation in the past, and I typically won't even have it anymore. Don't you just want to be like, check this out? Like, if you have something to say to me, then spit it in 16 bars, and I'll respond that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
no,
saying?
absolutely. No, 100%. And I think it really goes back to what Manira said about just being human. I realized that like human beings like other human beings. You know what I mean? Like someone may, like using Bob Marley as an example, what people like about him isn't Rastafarian literature or commentary in his music, is when he talks about freedom, or when he talks about love, or when he talks about, you know, like releasing the oppression of the people that have been shackled. And so for us, we had to make that change. There was a period where we were kind of like, we're Muslim, hijabs, and, you know, prayer mat, and that was our dialogue. And then we kind of stopped and we were like, hold up, like, let's just talk to people, you know what I mean, about themes and concepts that touch people. So one of our last projects that we did called Star Women, for example, we were just talking to ourselves about, you know, issues to do with identity, issues to do with beauty, issues to do with self-esteem, like love, everything that like we were going through as women. That's what we put onto a CD, and that project I think was the best project we've ever worked on, and it was the most sincere because we weren't trying to be anything other than like human beings, you know what I mean? And so I agree, you know, we are Muslim, we do wear hijab, so ultimately it is part of our dialogue. But even if I did a poem about or a track about my cat, it would be Muslim hip hop, you know what I mean?
Hold on a minute. What's your cat called?
You have a cat. It's called Loki.
Have you ever written anything for your cat?
Yeah, have you?
But I recite my poetry to him. I rap for him. Yeah. Like, and he loves me, and I love him, so he's okay.
Right. I was just checking. You just went for it. So Sakina doesn't have a cat, does she?
No, not yet.
Sakina, why did you say that about your?
Didn't like my cat.
Yeah. Sakina was just using a cat to make a point.
Yeah, just that if I was to do a poem about a cat or my shoes or whatever, it would always be regarded as Muslim rap because of how we appear.
But one thing though, in regards to that whole conversation about like music's not permissible, you know, you shouldn't be doing music, I don't even entertain that. Like not at this point in my stage in my life. I've been a Muslim for 10 years. I've been shrouded in like traditional scholarship. I'm studying a master's in Islamic studies myself. Most people don't even understand the complexities of hadith, let alone want to come to me and tell me what I'm doing is haram.
Manira, I love your body language right now. I was just like, do you kiss your teeth? Are you allowed to do that, or is that haram?
It might be haram, but my mama told me that I must kiss my teeth when I'm upset.
Can you imagine being Jamaican heritage and not kissing the teeth? That would be tough.
I feel like it is important to keep in mind that right now in the music industry we have, you know, somebody called, for instance, Iggy or Nicki Minaj, who are looked at to be the #1 artist in the world, but their message is very haram, and it is very poisonous to the young minds that listen to it. A lot of kids right now don't want to hear anything but music, and they listen to their messages. So it is good, though, to keep in mind clearing up a lot of these messages that are out there. And as artists, I know sometimes it's not fun to get put in the Muslim box like a Muslim artist, but it is important to represent, to, you know, express that we are not just going along with the flow and doing what everybody else is doing.
Talking about the flow, we're going to push on because we're almost out of time. Malika.
Well, Aaliyah, I'm actually so glad that you raised that. We got this tweet who says, if music does not stop one from remembering their creator or does not contain bad words or actions, then I don't see anything wrong with it. But Femi, I had to bring up this tweet because we were talking about it before the show. Yeah. And this is from Muslim Patrol in the UK. And they tweeted in, no doubt, some would accuse you of abusing the Muslimness to get rich. You can hear our guests laughing when they read this.
That's exactly what I said.
I know. How would you respond?
It's all in the name. His name is Muslim Patrol.
That says it all.
That says it all. The conversation.
The savior of the ummah.
All right.
I think, you know, a lot of, you know, I have. I have heard that comment has kind of come up a handful of times. But I think, like, you know, there's nothing fashionable about waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to wet your face and put your forehead on the ground and praise God. You know what I mean? There's nothing fashionable about starving for like 30 days of a year. There's nothing fashionable about, you know, having to be selective about what you can wear because you know that, like, you're trying to, as best as you possibly can, worship God. There's nothing fashionable about all of your friends going out and drinking and you having to sit back and say no. Like, for my point is that, like, that we wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, let's be Muslim to get big. Like, there's we are observant, practicing Muslim women. You know what I mean? And that isn't. I'm not saying it's difficult, but that comes with its own tests and its own struggles and trials and beauties. But my point is that we wouldn't, you know, observe a faith just to get a name. Like,
and like, it's again, just say nothing fashionable. There's nothing fashionable about like creating conflict with your family, trying to embrace a faith.
But Munira and Sakina, do you think people are booking you because they think you are trendy and edgy because you're hip hop hijabis? What your intent is very clear and very pure, but people booking you, they could be like, hey, this is how to get people to come see them. This is a little bit different. This will kind of mix things up just a little bit. I can see that happening.
I mean, I'm not saying that it does all the acts that they don't get booked for because they are Muslim. So if the Muslim patrol person thinks that they're somehow capitalizing, I can think of world leaders from Muslim countries who are pretending to be Muslim in order to sell Islam and export it around the globe, namely Saudi Arabia.
Right.
These girls are missing money because they're practicing their religion in the way that they're doing. Their artistry is superior to any people that are on the charts, but because they're Muslim, they have to kind of tiptoe around things and fight all these fights with people like Muslim Patrol, so they can't go out and even get that money. So that whole Muslim Patrol question is completely backwards.
Take that, Muslim Patrol. All right, ladies, do you ever do spontaneous spoken poetry? You know, like if somebody like me says, ladies, do you ever do spontaneous spoken poetry? Would there be something that you thought, oh, I know, this would be a great way to end this conversation that you could do?
Sure.
Yeah,
we do.
All right.
Especially if there's red velvet cake involved.
All right, I'll see what I can do this end.
I'll make you one.
All right. Somewhere red velvet cake will appear after we hear from Munira and Sakina. Poetic Pilgrimage. Take it away, ladies.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. Her mother held her close and told her she was beautiful. Little princess is beautiful as sunsets, delicate as butterflies in summertime. You are my daughter and you have my eyes, but I pray you never have to live my life. And then she cried for all the time she lost her pride, always a bit on the side. The one mums never liked, a troubled child. She was raped at the age of 5. Had no time to be a child, but a woman forced right. Never told she was loved, had a sexual appetite. It wasn't right, but used to hide the pain inside. Always surrounded by guys who told her lies to get between her thighs. She just wanted to be someone's wife, and after 4 attempts to take her life, she sought refuge in a crack pipe, and that night sold herself for that high. One day her body didn't feel right. She realized she was with child, but for the first time she felt alive. First time she felt a spirit rise. She gave birth but wanted her to have a better life, and with tears in her eyes she said, your beauty is beyond the stars. You're sacred and you know you are. She kissed her softly and her heart wept gently. Her soul felt empty. She called her baby Jamila cause it means beauty. I love you truly and you are my beauty. I love you truly and you are my beauty. Beautiful, and you know that you are beautiful, and you know that you are beautiful, and you know that you are, you're a star. You're so beautiful, and you know that you are beautiful, and you know that you are beautiful, and you know that you are, you're a star.
All right, that applause, that cheering you hear is Aaliyah, Anas and Tijani. They were at Google Hangout. You two are beautiful. Poetic Pilgrimage. Thank you for being on the stream today. We really enjoyed your company.
Nice.
And I don't think you're very welcome. I can't top that. I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for being part of the stream. Respect.